Kraven the Hunter. It could have been better. I don't know what's going on with Sony. I guess it's like they're saying to themselves, we've got to match Disney as far as their Marvel superhero projects go. But we really only got Spider-Man and his associated characters. So they try to take the villains from Spider-Man and kind of morph them into superheroes, I guess, while at the same time leaving room for there to be a potential Sinister Six. Just go to the source material, man. Just go to the source material. Spider-Man is one of the most popular comic books of all time. And Kraven the Hunter, in my humble opinion, I've been reading comic books since the early 70s. It may not look like it, but I'm older than a little bit. I've been reading comic books since the early 70s, man. And Spider-Man has always been one of my favorites. And Kraven has been one of my favorite villains. Spider-Man or otherwise. One of my favorite fighting villains has been Sabretooth and the Taskmaster. And Marvel really dropped the ball on Taskmaster. I don't even know what was up with that. But Sony did the same thing here with Kraven. They did it with Morbius. I don't know what was up with that. They did it with Madam Web. They changed her. They went to the comic book to pull that character out of the comics, and then they changed her into something else. They were like, well, let's make her young and stuff, and give her almost superpowers, and then bring in 3 more spider people and don't show them in costume or with their powers during the show. People will love that. Let's show these people and then not show their powers, and then make these guys, make Madam Web the hero, and make the villain of the movie, make him, he's the hero in the comic books. Well, not potentially a hero, but he was almost a mentor to Spider-Man. And they made him a villain for some reason. And I don't know why they did that. I mean, they take characters that have backgrounds in the comics that make sense. And they're basically using you know what? It was like, to me, it was like back in the day when they said the movie The Honeymooners was coming out. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, Ralph Kramden. I remember that. And they said Cedric the Entertainer was going to be playing Ralph. And I was like, I'm not sure if they can stick to it. And are they going to be able to do the thing where he always threatens to beat his wife up? I mean, because he used to threaten to beat her up all the time. Bang, zoom, right to the moon, Alice. Which is his way of saying, you keep talking, I'm going to beat you up. I'm like, can they put that in a TV show today, a movie? And then when they showed it, they could have called that movie anything they wanted to call it, because it didn't have nothing to do with The Honeymooners. Not the TV show, not really. They just used the name to get people to look at the screen. That's what Sony's been doing, man. And when they did Kraven, same thing. They said, hey, Kraven, the movie, ooh, he's going to kill a lot of people. Look at all this blood and guts. And people were like, okay, all right. To be honest, if you had a Kraven movie, it should be, he's a hunter, so he's killing things. So yeah, okay. But if you've seen the trailer, then you've seen most of the blood and guts. They've already showed it. The movie drug on, and you could tell that they were kind of just phoning it in, because there's one part when someone is looking at Kraven, and I can't remember the exact line, but they say something like, wow, this is an interesting place that you have here. And I'm like, they didn't even say that, like they didn't even say it like they were reading it. They were saying it like they were talking, but thinking about, what am I going to have for lunch this afternoon? It didn't sound like they were even trying to act in this one scene where Calypso is talking to him. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Calypso's talking to him, and she sounds crazy. And the scenes kept changing for no reason. They were like, Calypso and Kraven are talking, and he's like, I got to tell you about what I'm doing, and I'm killing people, and you saved my life back when I was a little kid, and they're talking, and then the camera changes, and she's sitting on a bench, and he's walking up behind her. It's like the next day or something. I don't know, because her clothes are different, so I'm guessing either she said, hold on, and she went home and took a shower and said, meet me at this bench, or they just started talking another day. It didn't make any sense. They were talking, they were standing in this tunnel talking to each other, and then the camera switches angles, and it shows her sitting on a bench, and Kraven's walking over to her. And I'm like, did I fall asleep? Maybe I had an aneurysm. It didn't make sense. They were standing there talking. They could have kept them right there to continue. It was the exact same line of dialogue. It wasn't like, they didn't even change. It wasn't like they were talking about apples and then they went over here and they were talking about, catfish. The dialogue is just like, I've been killing people and I've been doing this and da-da-da-da-da. And then they go over here and it's like, and you can help me. You've got special talents. And I'm like, they didn't even, it was the exact same line of dialogue. It's just that the camera moved and everything switched. Then he goes to this plot of land that I guess his mother owned before she died. And she's dead now. The father, has probably, I would assume, taken all of her stuff because he was pretty much the main engine of her dying. But there's this one plot of land that he just knew about, so he went there. And the state didn't foreclose on it, the bank didn't foreclose on it, it's just there. And nobody's doing nothing with it. And so he just walks over to it. It's got this gigantic, like a yurt type deal, a great big roof with no walls. And he goes inside and he looks around, he's like, And then he goes outside and goes to sleep. In the comic books, maybe I should start here. In the comic books, Kraven is Kravenoff. He's a hunter, and he's hunted most of his life. He gets really good at it, so good in fact that he has hunted every major predator on the planet, every major large game on the planet. And then he comes into a potion very similar to the heart-shaped herb that the Black Panther used. It's very similar, but it gives him similar powers. He becomes like a super soldier in the range of Black Panther and Captain America. He's got superhuman strength, speed, agility. He becomes a more, like when they said in Captain America, the super soldier system would make you more of what you are. He was a hunter, so it made him a more intense hunter. He spent a great deal of time in Africa learning different herbs, African weapons, and different techniques that they used in different regions of Africa. So he used that to hunt people, and he decided, you know what? I'm going after bigger game. I'm going after Spider-Man. And then he becomes obsessed with trying to hunt down, capture, and kill Spider-Man, which he kind of did in a series of books that ran. It was a really good story. He finally beats Spider-Man because this dude could punch an elephant in the face and knock it out. So he's really strong. So somebody that punches like that, they punch you in your face, your head is gonna come right off your shoulders. But he fights Spider-Man. He eventually beats Spider-Man, and he gorges himself on spiders for some reason. You know, he went crazy. He had a little crazy time. He's like, and he's eating spiders. And Peter Parker is lucky because that dude could have went cannibal because he was crazy. He was eating spiders. He could have just as easily eaten Spider-Man, but he thought he was dead and he wasn't. You know, he buried Spider-Man, and Spider-Man eventually escapes. But he pulls a Doc Ock, and he wants to prove he's better than Spider-Man. So he puts on the costume, and he goes out doing Spider-Man stuff. And his story is considerably longer than that, but that's one of his major stories. And that's his power set. He is physically powerful enough to fist fight with Spider-Man, and he's fast enough to fight Spider-Man. Now, if you've seen the movie where he fights Electro through lightning through the air, Spider-Man does a backflip and he's using his webs. He's only got the one web shooter and he's zapping it and he's pulling people out of the way and he's flipping and he's moving stuff. He did that before lightning could strike those people. That's how fast Spider-Man is. Kraven is fast enough to fight Spider-Man and strong enough to fight Spider-Man. Spider-Man's fought the Hulk. Kraven fought the Hulk too. He got caught a beating, but he fought him. Spider-Man has fought the Juggernaut. Kraven has fought Spider-Man. Kraven is a bad dude. A double tough, triple tough. But he learned his skill through years before he became essentially a super soldier. In this movie, he gets his power from a drop of lion blood, so he's kind of a were-lion, I guess. I mean, he's even in the darkness one time, and he's standing there. It did look cool. I'll give it respect, full respect. It did look cool. He's standing in the darkness, and you just see his eyes, and it looks like the lion when he's in the darkness, and then he comes out, and you see him, and I'm like, oh, well, that was kind of cool. That was it though. That was the end of the cool. He's trying to catch these guys. Now this dude went to a Russian jail, killed someone, and then basically just walked out, basically. But somebody kidnaps someone important to him, and he can't stop them. Now I know the writers did this to keep the story going, but it's not believable that somebody can rip metal in half. Somebody can outrun a car. He runs through the street and hits the car with his body so hard it was like a car crash. The car's like, "Arr!" Somebody that strong, he jumped out of like a 10-story building and lived. And just some regular guys in a car, just he couldn't catch him. I have a hard time with that. Especially, there's a scene in the movie, and I'm not really giving nothing away because this is part of a trailer, where he fights these dudes in a truck and one of them escapes. I kind of think he might have let him escape, but the dude escapes. And then later, the dude, you know, he runs, he gets in a car. I guess he catches a plane or a train or an automobile. He gets to his place where he's supposed to talk to his boss, and Kraven is already there, killed his boss, and is sitting in his boss's chair. And I'm thinking, okay, so he's a tracker, he's a hunter, I get that. He followed this guy. To follow someone, you're behind him. He followed this guy to where he was going, and then somehow got in front of him, got into the building, killed everybody, and he was sitting in a chair when the dude was walking into the building. How'd he get there? Didn't really explain that. He was just there. I mean, I was on the track team when I was, you know, in high school, and I ran in the Marine Corps and everything. And anytime anyone has ever been behind me, following me, they were behind me, following me. So if I'm running and you're behind me, how do I stop and you're in front of me? I would have had to have been following you. And how was the guy, how was he, it didn't make any sense. How was the guy behind Kraven? How did Kraven get there before him if he was following the dude? He would have had to have gotten there behind him. I don't get it. I don't know. I don't get it. I didn't like the way they gave him his powers. You know, I didn't like the fact that they were kind of trying to make him a good guy. Kraven's not really a good guy. He's a guy. He's got motives to do bad things, and he doesn't mind doing them. It's okay to him. His father's a gangster. His brother's a gangster. He's a murderer. I mean, he killed a few people in the movie. I mean, he was killing people in the movie. You know, it was kind of cool that he would run and, for some reason, stick to the wall. Lions don't stick to walls. I didn't know what that was about. But he was running along the side of a wall, and I was like, oh, what's that about? There's a nightmare where they're hinting about Spider-Man because he has a nightmare about spiders. And I was like, oh, Spider-Man, I get it. I get that. But Spider-Man's not in this movie. They don't even mention him. I didn't get that. There's a guy called the Foreigner that's in the movie, and they don't really explain what he's doing, but since I've read the comics, I know that when he takes his glasses off, he makes eye contact with you, he can hypnotize you. So he counts and you hypnotize. In the beginning, Spider-Man thought he was just so fast that Spider-Man, with his super dodging lightning speed, was throwing punches and the dude was just too fast. But what it turned out was Spider-Man would pull back and he would hypnotize Spider-Man. And he'd be, and then when he'd move, Spider-Man would be like, punch. Wow, that guy's so fast. He wasn't there. That happens in the movie. He hypnotizes people, and they show him like he's moving at super speed, but he's not. He's just moving at regular speed. They're just hypnotized. They're just frozen because of hypnotism. And he uses that. He hypnotizes people, freezes them, and then he can kill them or leave or take the money or do whatever he wants to while you're frozen. Actually, it's kind of a cool power, but not really a power because people do that nowadays for real life. I guess it is a superpower since I can't do it, but he's in this movie, and that was kind of interesting. The Rhino is in the movie, and the Rhino has a condition. Instead of being a dude trapped in a suit that kind of grows with him, but it's almost indestructible. The skin that he's trapped in that gives him the appearance of a rhino, that augmented his strength and his durability and his speed. Instead of that, he's got a disease where he would normally look like a big rhino from the waist up because he had regular legs. You know, he still wore pants and stuff. But if he took this serum, sort of like the reverse of Bane fighting Batman, he takes this serum and it lets him stay normal like a regular human. But once he unplugs it and takes it out, he starts to change. And twice in the movie, they show that he's kind of a monster because he unplugs himself and says, you know, I'm changing, you know, into like a rhino, and he shows his skin in his hand and his face just a little bit, and then he quickly plugs it back in. And I'm like, I don't know why you did that. Why'd you do that? Why wouldn't you just become, you know, just, if you want to show somebody something, show them something. You know, you can't threaten somebody and say, I'll get you, and then point at a stick on the ground or point at some other weapon and say, you don't want me to go over there, you're going to get hit in the head. They're going to get you before you, it's just like saying, you better get me now. He's like, let me pull this thing out and show you that I can turn into a rhino. But before I do, let me plug it back in so you don't actually see me change. He did that twice. And then I guess the big reveal, at the end, he unplugs it and he fully turns on. You've seen the trailer, so you know what he looks like. But he's only a rhino, really, from the waist up, which I guess they didn't have the money to to make him look like the rhino all the way, from the waist down. It was just the waist up. And the bottom half of him, he was still wearing like regular pants. And the movie took so long. And the father hated his children, and he never really explained why. He didn't like his wife, he didn't like his children. He's just a hateful dude, I guess. But then, and you know what? He didn't, they suggested once that maybe his father struck him, but he was just mean to the kids, and not super mean, just, you're a coward. He just said stuff like that to him, and I mean, you know what happened. He's a super villain, and his father was bad to him, so you know what's going to happen to the father. But I'm thinking, you did that to your father because he was mean to you? Where they do that at? I thought you was like Russian. Aren't you guys supposed to be, living over there in Siberia in the cold, fighting bears and stuff like that? I thought you guys was a tougher breed. He's like, oh, my daddy picked on me when I was little, so I'm going to kill him. It didn't make any sense to me. Why'd you have to go back? You didn't even have to go back over there. When I was real young, a girl I dated, she was mean to me. I stopped going over there. I didn't say to myself, I probably should have her attack my animals. I was thinking, oh, I ain't coming back over here again. That's not going to happen. And I never went back. His father was mean to him. He had left already. He was gone. He didn't have to go back, but he decided, I'm going to go back and see if he'll still pick on me. And then I'll get him. The story was bad. Aaron Taylor Johnson did the best with what he was given. And the way he acted, I am sure he probably thought this was going to be a great movie. But I didn't like it. Especially because Kraven is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. He's one of my favorite superhero villains. He's one of my favorite pop culture characters. He's easily in the top 10 across movies, TV, comic books, regular books, novels, cartoons, everything. He's in the top 10. Probably higher than that, really. And when they said a movie was coming out, I was ecstatic. And now that I've seen it, I'm like, one of them things that you look at and you just hum. It wasn't great, especially since I was expecting great. But I thought about it, and I was halfway expecting not great because of Madam Web and because of Morbius and stuff like that. So I hear that this is their last standalone movie. And I think their plan is to concentrate on Spider-Man. I really hope not, because I'm not sure I could bear them getting their hands on Spider-Man and doing something wacky with him, like giving him wings or saying that he was actually an alien or something crazy. They just keep changing the stories. Just let the stories be the stories, man. People come to the movies for a good show, a good movie, a good story. And the comic book community comes there to see a portrayal of the characters they know from the books. You've changed it. It's like Batman having a sidekick called the Joker. That's not right. That's not right. That's like going to Gilligan's Island and finding out that Lucille Ball, Lucy from I Love Lucy, was actually on the other side of the island the whole time collecting coconuts. You're just mixing stuff up. You're just making it bad. I did not like it. But after seeing it, let's get to that part. After seeing Kraven the Hunter, would give Kraven the Hunter 5 bags of popcorn. 5 bags of popcorn. Because that's what I think about that. More importantly, what do you think about that? Now that you've seen the video, let's talk about it some more in the comments. And as always, if you like the video, if you like the content, subscribe. And then like.
Popcorn passport. Get your